Namaskaram and hello again. Today we're going to talk about communication. I was going to talk about that yesterday originally, but I got just a little sidetracked and felt like I needed to address the whole, let's call all these other people who are problems in my life after X, Y, or Z personality disorder. Because I do see that as very problematic. We all have these traits. Personality disorders are when they get so severe, and often, as I indicated, it's part of their blueprint of this individual from a very, very early age. Yeah, traumatic experiences and abuse as a child can definitely be a huge contributing factor to the development of that. But personally, my both personal and professional opinion is I think there's some predisposition there, especially with the neural pathways and potentially like neurophysiology and neuroanatomy that's off. Those individuals it's a very, very small portion of the population. So just be careful when you're throwing that out there. My ex is a narcissist. They might have been narcissistic, but I don't know if they would actually meet all the criteria to be a narcissistic personality disorder person. And take accountability for yourself, because not always, I'm not saying every single person out there, but most likely you contributed to an unhealthy dynamic or relationship. So I wanted to address that, and I did talk about in previous episodes things like accountability, resiliency, being transparent and honest, and loyalty. And I will just recap loyalty very quickly, because a lot of people think, oh, I need to bend the knee and capitulate and surrender my free will to this person no matter what, even if they're way in the wrong. No, that's more like servitude. Loyalty is like a fantastic thing, because you are choosing out of your own free will to give a certain person, group of people, or a cause or a belief, such as religion, your time, energy, dedication, respect, care, and some form and level of love. Okay, it's this huge umbrella that encompasses all those things. So it can be a very, very beautiful thing as long as everybody involved, right, is holding up their end of the bargain. And what I mean by that is that they are respecting the sanctity of the loyalty that everybody is contributing. Okay? Once that loyalty, whatever aspect it is, starts getting disrespected, starts becoming devalued, it usually things degrade, and they degrade very quickly, or even abruptly, and it's hard to regain that loyalty. The other thing that goes into that is trust. Trust goes on; it's under that umbrella of loyalty, and when things like trust are broken, or huge boundaries are crossed, it's not impossible to find resolution and heal from that, and to continue on with that interpersonal connection or that dedication to something like, a church or a religion or a movement. But the other thing that's very, very crucial in all interpersonal connections and interactions is healthy communication. Today, I'm not going to go into this list of this is the way you follow healthy communications. These are the guidelines. Because first of all, that is going to usually be like tailored to each dynamic and each connection that you have. So while we're all human here, I hope everybody listening is human. While we share a lot of overlap with each other, right? Carl Jung talks about the collective unconsciousness, which I will talk about that in the future, because I really appreciate Carl Jung's works. But so there's we share genetic traits. We share like common goals in life. Like we all want to thrive. We all want to be loved and loved. And that looks different for a lot of people. But while we have those commonalities, like the Venn diagram where we overlap, like everybody says, you're special, everybody's special. Well, yeah, there's unique qualities and traits or things about us that set us apart from everybody else, right? Whether it's our physical DNA or our intellectual DNA or spiritual DNA. I believe that we all carry some form of heredity, right? And some kind of DNA, even with our intellect. And especially as a Hindu, that would make sense when we go on into the next life. We are carrying some of that, the memories and our intellectual prowess or the progress that we've made, or even the reverse, I guess, if we've devolved. And that spirit, like our souls, right, our divine sparks, whatever you want to call it, that has a certain like genetic code to it. So those things may be, in all of our genome, like our physical genome, might be very, very small compared to the person next to us. They're still different. And everybody, no matter what, when we agree, okay, that color is blue, that is an owl, right? That appears to be going very quickly. We can agree on certain things. We form this structure, this psychological structure where we can all agree on things. At the same time, seeing through my eyes is going to probably be, even if slightly different than the person next to me. And when you start to go down that rabbit hole of what is hurtful to me versus what is hurtful to you. I even indicated this in the video on transparency and trust. Transparency and honesty. So for me, one of the very most important things in any very close, intimate friendship or connection, relationship, is honesty and transparency. And I mean, that is so important to me. And so, what it may not be as important to, the next person, or they may say it's important, but maybe the details are a little different than mine, right? Maybe this aspect of it is that, like, to them, it is very like strict parameters. You can't boundary step that. And I might be a little bit more laxed on it. What someone finds is hurtful and as betrayal, as cheating. And that's something that I will talk about in the future too, because some people think that cheating is only when there's a marriage or a very, very committed, exclusive relationship. And then you go and you sleep. Right, you have sexual relations with somebody else, then that's cheating. But for other people, it can be like, if you've established your, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, and you've established you're in a relationship and you're not open, all right? It's just you two. And if you're gonna, want to go outside that, then you've agreed, well, we need to talk about that first. And for some people, like even that, like you go and you start having an emotional affair, a romantic emotional affair with somebody. You're calling them, you're really bonding and clicking, and you're maybe even saying, I have really deep feelings for you, or I'm in love with you. I think I might be in love with you. Like for some people, that is a huge betrayal. And nobody should ever say, well, that's silly, that's stupid. No, that's that person's boundaries, all right? And realistically, yeah, there are such things as not just YouTube's sexual, affairs. There's mental, emotional affairs, spiritual affairs, right? So people will need to understand that, and I'll talk about that in a future video. And maybe it's wise, again, this loops right into communication. Communication relies heavily on being honest and transparent. So in that video, I primarily focused on very, very close interpersonal, intimate relationships, friendships, okay? Now, communication, though, in general, again, you don't have to bare your soul and, give all the details of your first crush from when you were like 10 years old, or your first sexual experience, or even your, social security number. I'm not saying that. What I'm getting at, though, is that even in the workplace where, you might be acquaintances or workplace friends, with your coworkers, it is still important to, in that dynamic, to be transparent and honest about what's going on, specifically with work, right? If you're working on the same projects, or Jerry is working on that aspect of the project, and then Sally's working on this other one, and you're working on this, like, eventually you guys are going to have to communicate and be transparent and honest about what's going on, because if you don't, there's a high likelihood, probability, that there's going to be a major wrench thrown into the works, okay? A lot of people don't want to admit maybe they're falling behind, or they've noticed maybe Jerry's up to, some sly, slick, shady, tactics with achieving his load of the work, so you don't want to have a confrontation. I get it. It's complicated, but this is why I'm trying to encourage everybody to, have like healthy communication, to be transparent, to be authentic, right? To honor the loyalty that, you've committed to a certain relationship or group or movement. So with communication, again, I think there's some basic guidelines and tenets out there. I think a lot of people, there's, probably a bazillion, YouTube videos out there, or on Facebook or whatever, that talk about what healthy communication is and how to practice it. And I'm not trying to poo-poo any of those videos. Please watch them, because maybe some of those things will work for you, but they might not work for, 420 Huff and Puff, username. So to each their own. Find what works for you in your situation with your interpersonal dynamic or connection, right? But I think when you get down to it, practicing that authenticity, the transparency, the honesty, and going back, this is another, I think, very, very important aspect of interpersonal connections. Whenever there's a hiccup, whenever you and somebody else or other people start to have something that gets in the way of moving on forward smoothly, some argument comes up, or some misunderstanding, which might cause an argument, is go back to what the root commonality in the interpersonal connection is. And this reminds me of, if a lot of you, if you've been in the, job hunting scene in the past few years, you'll see this question pop up, or you'll be asked this question in interviews. So what would you do or what have you done in the past when you and a coworker didn't see eye to eye, or maybe, there was tension, you didn't like each other? How did you resolve that issue? And I would always go back to when I started being a PMHNP. I would think about certain maybe coworkers or patients even, where maybe there wasn't a lot of good synergy, we weren't jiving, okay, for whatever reason. All right. Sometimes there's really not a good explanation. It's just the energy you give off, and maybe you or that person or both are dealing with something in your personal lives. Who knows? But I would say, well, especially with a coworker where we're working, together, with the same patient or patient load, I would always say, hey, what do we have in common here? And that is we care about the well-being of our patients and we want to help people. Is that not what our, the like cornerstone of our interpersonal connection is? Isn't that what we both like want to achieve is good patient healthcare outcomes? And you can apply that. So you can take that, right? Like, okay, so me and, my best friend had a misunderstanding and a blow up, and now you're both angry or you're both hurt, depressed, just, or you're confused, you don't know what to do. And every time it seems like when you try to broach the subject, you try to, seek resolution, it just spirals out of control, right? I would say, again, like I've said in many videos, ground yourself, right? Do something that helps ground yourself. Breathing in through the nose slowly, holding it, a few seconds, however long you can. You don't have to, you're not like practicing holding your breath underwater or anything. And then slowly exhaling out through your mouth, which stimulates the vagus nerve and kind of tamps things down a bit. Do that a few times before you're heading into, potential conflict or argument, and you don't want it to go down that way. Just ground yourself. Go outside barefoot. If you can. Put your feet on the grass. You have a lot of different kinds of receptors on the soles of your feet, and I think when we look at human history, it makes sense that like our ancestors survived so much with no medicine, very little clothing. So I'll talk about that in another video too. That's a tangential sidebar. Interesting though. So do whatever you need to do to ground yourself. Take a shower, okay? Cool off or get warm water on you if it's cold. And then when you're in that cool, calm, collected state of mind, approach that person or persons and say, hey, what do we have in common here? Like what connects us? What is the thread that holds us together? And it's mutual love, respect, care, interest, in each other, or interests that we share, or goals that we have. Like that's what brought us together. That's what helped us form this really solid connection in the first place. Let's all just take a moment. It may sound cheesy, right? But just let's take a moment, ground ourselves, and remember that, right? Let's remember what has brought us together. Because that guaranteed is almost, I can't say guaranteed. It's almost always stronger than whatever hurt or anger that you may have towards that other person. I've heard that you can't hate somebody more than that you love them. So if you love someone in the beginning, right, it's you can hate them quite a bit, but you can probably never hate them more than you love them, because most of that hatred is hurt coming out as anger, right? And your rage needs a victim. So try to get everybody to remember that and get back to that space, and everybody approach with a calmer, cooler, more collected mindset. And generally it's not going to like fix things like that, la-di-da-di-da, let's go on our way, our merry way. No, you're still going to have to work on stuff, okay? But that is a great starting place. And again, as I've indicated in a previous video though, everybody has to be willing to do that. And sometimes some people, this is going to be a hard truth, everybody, but I think we've all been there. The other person or persons, they just dig their heels in and they refuse for whatever reason, right? I think it's a lot of having trouble, like taking accountability and not wanting to face the music and not wanting to have hard discussions where truth and transparency are a must and good communication, right? And especially if there's been loyalty that has been betrayed or devalued or degraded or disrespected. So again, we'll touch on this in a future video where I'll break down more of like the different guidelines for healthy communication. We'll go into some examples, more specific examples that maybe y'all can relate to. But for now, hit the 20-minute mark. I'm trying to keep it around there. And yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this. I am wearing my suit, my John Wick suit. Baba Yaga. No, it's I'm gonna go to a couple of my favorite places where everybody knows my name, and I've had some really fun, interesting interactions with both the guys and girls that work there, and people, customers and patrons. Sat next to one of the main characters on that show, Riverdale, and his wife. Great conversations. They seem like a really solid couple. And I've sat next to CEOs and musicians, former NASCAR driver. So I won't mention names, but it's been really cool. And it's Mardi Gras coming up. I'm not into like the loud, crazy bar scenes or anything like that. These are just very chill, relaxed places. And yeah, it's just good to get out even on your own. But when people know your name, recognize you and have a genuine smile on their face, that makes you feel good, right? So I hope you all have that in some way, shape, or form in your lives. And we'll be in touch. But as always, no matter who you are out there, I genuinely pray and hope that y'all find your way on your path to your higher self, and have a connection with something that's greater than yourself. I honestly do. I hope you have a wonderful night and take care.